Shalom and welcome everybody to the Israel Brief, brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land, and hosted by me, Rolene Marks. On this very, very solemn day in Israel, it is Yom Hashoa, Israel's National Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Memorial Day. And of course, a very, very poignant day for all of us here and for Jewish communities around the world, as we mark 80 years since the end of the Holocaust, which saw the wholesale extermination of over 6 million Jewish men, women, and children during the Second World War. Now, before we get into our headlines of the day, I want to make a plea to you. Some of you have complained that you're not seeing the Israel Brief popping up on YouTube and across various social media. So, upon further investigation, it has been found that, we'll call them hostile entities, are trying to report en masse or try and block the Israel Brief from getting seen. And it's important that we make sure, especially now when there is so much misinformation and disinformation out there, and when the mainstream media fails to bring you Israel's side of the story, that Israeli voices are heard. And this is exactly why the Israel Brief exists. It's to bring you the news from the ground in Israel, the good, the bad, warts and all, so that you understand what is happening on the ground here from a journalist, me, who is working here. So my plea to you is that if you do see the Israel Brief popping up on social media or on your YouTube algorithm, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that red subscribe button. And if you are on our Facebook page, or if you happen to see us, or rather me, on Instagram or LinkedIn, please like, share, follow, subscribe, and invite your friends too as well. We will not be silenced and we will not be intimidated. We have a right to be heard. And those that advocate for the freedom of speech need to understand that we also have the right for our freedom of speech. So with that said, let's get into those top stories. It is day 566 since the atrocities of the 7th of October. And you can very much feel here how that Black Sabbath and Yom Hashoa now, the second one that we are commemorating after those atrocities, how it really informs what we feel here, how we go about the observances of the day. And we also can't forget that there are still 59 hostages. And listening over the past now nearly 24 hours to Holocaust survivors speaking about what they endured in the hells of the death camps and the ghettos and the concentration camps of Europe, they recognize themselves in the hostages and the hell that they are enduring. We cannot forget those images of released hostages coming out from Gaza, emaciated, having been starved, dehydrated, deprived of medical care, tortured, and we want them all released immediately. As I keep saying, the living, the 24 still alive, to begin that very, very long road to recovery, and the dead to be laid to rest with dignity. So let's get into our top stories, and we begin with it being Yom Hashoa, and last night at 8 p.m. the annual tekes or ceremony began at Yad Vashem, that is Israel's national memorial and museum to the Holocaust. President Herzog, the Prime Minister, the two chief rabbis of the Sephardi and Ashkenazi communities, as well as various dignitaries, and of course Holocaust survivors gathered at Yad Vashem for the annual ceremony. What I find extremely moving every year are the 6 torchlighters, Holocaust survivors who share their individual stories and light those torches of hope. And we are very, very aware that as time marches on, so the ability to hear from first-hand witnesses is also growing smaller and smaller and smaller. And it is a privilege when we get to see them and when we get to hear from them firsthand. Addressing the dignitaries, President Herzog spoke very movingly about how he has the enormous privilege of meeting Holocaust survivors and their families. And he spoke about how they ask him just for one thing: Mr. President, do everything in your power to bring about the unity of the Jewish people. The president also shared extremely emotional stories of Holocaust survivors, including Tommy, whose image is very, very famous around the world. If you remember the liberation of the death camps and that very famous black and white picture where you see young boys being liberated, one of them the chief Rabbi Lau, and amongst them is Tommy, and he decided not to attend the 80-year commemorations in Poland. He joined his granddaughter aboard an Israeli naval vessel. He said this is his victory. His victory is being able to be there with his granddaughter and have defenders of the Jewish people. Prime Minister Netanyahu also addressed dignitaries. In his speech, he spoke about how Israel will continue with military pressure on Hamas, the modern-day Nazis, to ensure the release of our hostages. The Prime Minister also addressed Holocaust survivors earlier in the day, where he said that he would rather have an Israel that is strong and respected rather than an Israel that is liked. Now, happening as we speak is the March of the Living. This is the annual event that sees the march of many participants from Auschwitz to Birkenau. And this year's March of the Living, commemorating 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp, includes the President of Poland, as well as 80 Holocaust survivors, and also former hostages and bereaved families. Very, very, very emotional today was hearing Eli Sharabi speak outside the gas chambers and crematoria, speaking about the imperative of the state of Israel and how we must fight as hard as we possibly can to ensure the release of our hostages. Also very moving was seeing former hostages inside the former gas chambers singing Hatikva. And to me, that is the story of the Jewish people encapsulated in one visual. Now at 10 a.m. this morning, Israel came to a complete standstill as the memorial siren wailed across the country. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you that many of us had to quickly double check that it was the memorial siren and not the air raid sirens. And that actually speaks to how much PTSD we are all experiencing here in Israel. So if you for a split second felt that it was an air raid siren, or if you went to your mamad, your safe room, it's totally okay. We are all suffering from PTSD, and that is life during wartime. Wildfires are continuing to be fought by our firefighters on the outskirts of Jerusalem and surrounds. Yesterday, wildfires broke out in the outskirts of Jerusalem, parts of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, and as far as Rehovot. Now, the weather was extremely, extremely hot yesterday. In fact, it measured 39 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure how much that is in Fahrenheit on the mercury here in Modi'in, where I am in the center of Israel. Israeli fire and rescue services said at least 71 teams were battling the blazes, and 2 firefighters were hospitalized with smoke inhalation. The IDF also participated in attempts and to fight to put out the fires. And while they have been largely contained, there are still fires that are being fought by our teams on the ground. The Einot Gibton National Park, an area of Israel that had recently been kind of restored, has seen quite a significant amount of damage, and it is estimated that there could be up to about 10,000 dunams of damage to the Judean hills. So we're going to have to rehab that land. Thank goodness it has been reported that people were evacuated safely, no injuries. I saw a lot of evacuation of animals. I'm an animal person, and thank God for our fire and rescue services and all our first responders working on the ground. Seeing a firefighter put an oxygen mask over a goat, it speaks to you about who we are as a nation. Defense Minister Israel Katz has given the approval for 600 Syrian Druze clerics to enter Israel tomorrow for the holiday of Ziyarah, which they will observe at the tomb of Nabi Shuaib in the Lower Galilee. Now, this is the first time that Syrian Druze will be able to stay overnight in the Jewish state, and this follows a visit in March of 60 Syrian Druze clerics, and on watching that welcome was just absolutely something spectacular to see. Prime Minister Netanyahu will head to Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, next month. He will meet with his Azerbaijani counterpart, the president of Azerbaijan. On the topic of discussion will be Turkey's presence in Syria. Azerbaijan plays a vital role in mediating between Israel and Turkey. The bilateral relations between Israel and Turkey have significantly soured since the 7th of October. And also on the agenda are plans to include Azerbaijan in the Abraham Accords. And we want to see that circle of peace expand. So who's going to be next? Will it be Azerbaijan? Let's watch this space very carefully. So now, because it's a Thursday, we get to that time of the week that you all love, which is the Menches and the morons. And guys, kol hakavod, well done. You sent me like a laundry list on both accounts. So first of all, I'm going to take the audience question. It comes from Taryn in Bondi. Well, good day, Taryn. I'm heading in your direction very soon. And she wants to know, Rolene, yesterday you spoke about righteous Gentiles. What is a righteous Gentile? Well, that is a fabulous question, Taryn. A righteous Gentile refers to the non-Jews during the Holocaust who rescued Jewish individuals, Jewish families, at great risk to their own individual safety. Many of them hid them in their homes, and as a result, all these years later, we have and continue to honor them through Yad Vashem, where if they're not alive anymore, their descendants are honored on their behalf as righteous amongst the nations. And finally, hey, it's just my desk, not a drum. Let's look at your Menches and your morons. So first, let's get the morons out of the way. And we have quite a few. So I have here that woman in pink in the UK House of Commons. So that was Emily Thornberry. She is the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee. She has been nominated as a moron of the week for her belligerent and condescending tone, which she questioned the brilliant barrister Natasha Hausdorff and journalist and commentator Jonathan Sacerdoti. The other morons include Irish rap band Kneecap for their repugnant performance at Coachella. They had a big sign that said "Free Palestine, fuck Israel," to which one of our Menches of the week is working to get their visa revoked. Angelina Jolie for being totally silent about the plight of Israeli women and children and civilians, but calling Gaza, I think as she referred to Gaza as a wasteland, blaming the IDF for that. And I think those are our morons of the week. Let's take a look at our Menches. And we have Montana Tucker, the brilliant Montana Tucker. She is a young singer and dancer and influencer, and she has used her platform since the 7th of October to advocate for Israel and especially Israel's children. Her documentary, The Children of the 7th of October, is streaming now on Paramount Plus. It is 35 minutes of your time. I really beg you, if you can, to watch it. Hear the voices of Israel's children, the children the world has forgotten, but we will never forget. And thank you, Montana Tucker, for making this remarkable documentary. Natasha Hausdorff, who, with the most unimaginable poise, knowledge, and verbal dexterity, gave her a testimony, endured the belligerence of Emily Thornberry and other members of the House of Commons, and who has been absolutely extraordinary on the legal battlefield. A good friend of mine, Tim Flack, for his epic op-ed in the Biz News in South Africa, taking aim at Pick and Pay and BDS and calling out the calls to remove kosher goods and to remove the Stars of David, the Magen David, as the Jew hatred that it is. And Mrs. O, Sharon Osbourne, for using her platform continuously to speak out for the victims of the 7th of October, to speak out against anti-Semitism, and now for taking on Kneecap and Green Day for their repugnant Jew hatred at music festivals, going so far as to call for the US State Department to revoke the visas of the rap group Kneecap so that they don't spread their bile and their hatred across stages everywhere. So that's it for the week. Guys, don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. Help us to keep our voices going by hitting that red subscribe button and making sure that you don't miss a beat. If you want to be kept up to date with the Israel Brief, hit the little alarm bell. It will notify you every time we post a brief. We are on Facebook at Lotlsite, that's at LOTLSITE, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, that's Rolene_Marks, LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, X at Lay of the Land 5. And guys, God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you again on Monday. Bye for now.